Hello there, welcome to PvP. Today, I've been waiting for this one for a while. We're doing Dan Plays Star Trek Online. Now, this is a game I've talked about a lot of the time, and it's probably the game that I put the most hours into out of any game I've really owned, apart from maybe Guitar Hero. But this is a game that I can't quite put my finger on as to why I like it so much, other than it's Star Trek, actual gameplay features kind of thing. But this is definitely one of my favourite games of all time. So here we are. This is my captain. This is Captain Stuart Lance, and that is my fantastic ship. It's an Odyssey class ship, which is a ship that was only kind of introduced into Star Trek Online, as it's set about 30 years or so after Star Trek Nemesis, which is the last film that Patrick Stewart and the Next Generation crew were in. So it's about 35 years after that, which is it was set. Well, this is supposed to be after when Spock and Nero go back in time. So in this, Romulus has been destroyed, and then when Spock goes back in time with Nero, everything changes and blah blah blah. New Star Trek films. So this is they've, instead of following that through, they've just sort of gone beyond that, but in the current canon timeline, which is really quite interesting, really. So it's led to some good stuff. Now, Leonard Nimoy does provide some narration to this as well, but there has also been some special star guests. There's been Denise Crosby, who plays Tasha Yar in Star Trek: The Next Generation before she was killed off. And Michael Dorn is currently in it as well, who plays Worf, who's been in Deep Space Nine, he's been in pretty much all of the films. So this is my fantastic little ship. This is the USS Trident. Now, she's an Odyssey class ship. This is one I think I actually paid for, because as my guy is a tactical captain, so you get more advantages with weapons and defence and that kind of stuff. This one's actually got more room for tactical officers, so we can have more tactical powers and stuff like that. And at the moment, we are currently in the sector known as Wolf 359, which is a really sort of integral part of the Next Generation timeline. When Captain Picard, is taken over by the Borg and becomes a little Locutus of Borg and leads an assault with a Borg cube on Earth. And around, you can see all the debris of all the ships that were actually lost in said battle. About 11,000 people were actually killed, and thousands of Borg drones that were on the cube, but 11,000 people. So even though the Federation itself is kind of set in this beautiful utopian future where all of humanity works together and strives to explore, there still are massive losses when it comes to sort of war and horrible things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this system. At the moment, the Q Winter Wonderland, which is kind of like a seasonal event. Most MMOs get all excited when it's Halloween and Christmas and that sort of stuff. So the winter event. Oh, look, there's Michael Dorn as Worf. There we are. So what we're going to do is sort of have a little bit of look at the map. So all these little blue characters here, but apart from one or two cargo vessels, these are all actual players on the map, on this instance anyway, sort of milling about. So we're at the moment we're currently travelling at warp. So this is just a sort of a layman's version of it, and we're going to approach the Sol system here, which is obviously where Earth is. We're going to fly into there, and we're going to go and speak to Q, who's actually on Earth space dock, which is the main space dock around Earth, and he'll transport you then to a winter wonderland kind of thing. Now these do actually change every year, so I haven't been on this one yet. I don't know what it's like. But we'll just nip straight over there. We'll dock with the station. Now, I'm mainly doing this as kind of like a sales pitch for Callum, more than anything. Mainly for the fact that the only videos he's really seen of this are from years and years ago, when it was sort of first launched, was in like 2011, I want to say. Or no, sorry, 2010, which is when the first sort of seasons really came around. Now, there is a new season, which is the one that Michael Dorn's involved with, which was released on November the 12th, which I haven't really taken part in. But the last time I was doing a Q event, he was actually by the fountain over here. He's got... Oh, no, there he is. Now, the Q are really cool characters. They're these sort of like omnipotent god... I forget all that. Sort of these like omnipotent god creatures. They can sort of will things in and out of existence, and they can transport you around, like he just has there. So now he sends you off to this kind of crazy winter wonderland. Now, the last time I was here, they were doing... ice skating, so you're sort of like running on an ice rink to sort of beat all the other players. But as for what's in store for this year, I have absolutely no idea. Well, this whole sort of pavilion is new for a start. There's Q just sort of floating about. What have we got going on over here? A winter chef, right, fair enough. Defend the gingerbread colony.
Do you have a delightful treat to try?
Yes, okay. Let's defend the gingerbread colony in Star Trek, in space. Brilliant. So we've joined the queue for the winter invasion, which is something to do with gingerbread men. Not quite sort of epic space battles and, you know, hostile aliens and stuff. But I'm sure it'd be interesting. Maybe? I don't know. But at the moment we're in the queue, so we'll just have a bit of a wander around and see what's going on sort of elsewhere. So there's a big frozen lake down here. Now I remember last time... Oh, they have got them as well. They've got Klingons with... snowmen with batleths. There it is, yeah. There's a little stick batleth there. And there's a snowman that's killed. There's one that's killed under the snowman here with the batleth. Now the batleth is like some traditional Klingon weapon. You can buy them in real life, and they're really cool. But they're not sharp, so they're pretty pointless. Take snowballs. Brilliant. 10 snowballs. Excellent. Now I'm assuming that they've got... Oh, there's people just ice skating. Did we get like auto ice skates or... Brilliant. So you can have a bit of a skid around on the lake. There's loads of snowmen with one's an Andorian there with the little antennas, very nice. So this match hasn't actually loaded up yet. But defending a gingerbread colony, I'm sure it's fantastic and all, but we'll leave that and we'll go to space, I think, where the more sort of interesting stuff happens. But there's loads of stuff in there, and there's like loads of XP and special bonuses and all that kind of stuff you can get from there. And there'll be special sort of like winter prizes that you can win. So there'll be things like, I don't know, Santa hats and you know, there's like little pets that you can get that follow you around. So there might be like some sort of Christmas themed ones of those. But what we'll do is we'll jump in the Trident. We'll have a bit of a fly and see if we can come across some bad guys. So as you can see, all these guys here, this is just in Earth space dock. So this is just one section of the entire galaxy map, and the map is pretty big. So right about here is there it is, right in the dead centre. That's where Earth is, and then this entire area is explorable sort of space. Now you sort of have to walk between the areas, but there's not very much in the way of loading time. And they there are rumours that they're actually going to have sections that will go through into the Delta Quadrant in newer series as well, which is going to be really cool. Which means that you can have some of the you know, the Vath and the Hirogen and, you know, all those sort of species that were discovered in Voyager, and obviously more of the Borg. But the Borg do play a big part in this as well as species 8472, the Undine. But what we'll do is we'll just have a bit of a mooch about. Where's the area map? Here we are. So if we just fly down to, say, Gamma Orionis. Now this is the transport conduit that actually takes you to a section of the Delta Quadrant, but it's a very limited area. There's nowhere to explore. It's just sort of battle areas kind of thing. But there's one of the Romulan sort of attack ships from Nemesis, which is the sort of the big ship that Tom Hardy had with the Thaleron weapons, and you do get those in here, but they've got huge like charge up time, so that you've got to be sort of out of the way when you're sort of doing any of the PvE events. Now the PvE events, they can be, you know, a squad of like 6 or 7 of your guys, and there's hundreds of enemy ships. Now you do kind of outpower them usually, but with the sheer numbers, there's it can get mental. Battles can take hours, so they're dead fun. Here we have all the sort of like the duty rosters. Now this is where you, again, these are all updated. This has been constantly updated. I've never played an MMO that's changed so much over just even a couple of years. But here what you do is you have a crew of duty officers. Now some of these you can have actually attached to your ship, and they'll give you special bonuses like when you're on the planet or when you're actually on the ship, so you can get extra stuff. But what you can do is when you're in certain areas, like this sector that I'm in now, then there are all these different missions available. So there we go, that's a rare one, for example. Scan Rift for chronometric wave signatures. Now you don't actually do anything towards that, But basically you select a couple of the staff members, you set them to an assignment, they go out, they do whatever the mission is, and then they will, compile data, and some of them get you rewards, some of the rarer ones you do anyway, but so in this case, you'd get dilithium, which is kind of like a currency, diplomacy XP, which is what you use to travel to like Klingon space, expertise and skill points, those are what you use to spend on, new crew members and stuff. So this is the bridge crew I've got here. We've got Captain Lance, obviously, his skills, a lot of space skills I sort of invested in, not so much the ground stuff, because I did want to spend most of my time in space. But at the moment there's no more actual, let's just get rid of that. There's not any more points I can spend, unfortunately, and I've maxed out my crew on pretty much everything, so I've got 418,000 points left to spend. And so for example, I've maxed this officer out, which is my oldest officer, she's the first officer, and I've spent 47,500 on her. So there's fucking so many spare skill points, and everyone's pretty much maxed out. And you can use them to train each other as well. Now what they do is they actually give you special abilities when you're on the ground as well as on the ship. So all of these along here, so this is Tapanme here. So these are different types of weapon attack, like torpedo attack. So the first one, which is a spread of torpedoes, it will launch multiple torpedoes instead of just the one. Then we've got a special mine layer here, so that'll lay a couple of mines instead of just the normal one. And then there's this, which is a high yield torpedo, so it'll fire a more powerful one. In my case, I use something which is called a tricobalt torpedo. Now this is something that is referenced on Star Trek Voyager as what they use to destroy the Caretakers array, which is the whole start thing. But they're incredibly powerful, dead slow moving, so they can be shot down, but if you got the shields out of the way and you actually managed to land one of these torpedoes with a high yield 3, which is what this power is here, if you've got one of those activated, so it's like a level 3, level 50 tricobalt torpedo, and that manages to get past the shields and actually hit the ship, it can do sort of 50,000 damage. And as my hull is only like 47,000 on my ship, so one of those would just take me out. So they're incredibly powerful. So we've also got a few different phaser attacks here. So this one's sort of targeting shields on an enemy ship. This one will fire it'll fire all the beam arrays at every enemy around you. Now the engineer station, that's more sort of sort of central buff, so healing your ship, making shields recharge faster. In this one on the end here, which is actually vent warp plasma, and that actually slows down any enemy ships that go into it. Then the side stations, these are the more sort of technical things. So we've got a tachyon pulse, which is, I think, this one. Yeah, I think it's this one here. But that basically sort of disables shields and stuff like that. And then there's another one here, which the feedback pulse is basically whenever any enemy fire hits the shields, some of that gets redirected back to them as well. And you can mix and match the crew, train them up with different skills. So there's a limitless amount of different power-ups and stuff you can get. And all of them, you just sort of mix and match them to your own specific playing style. So what we'll do, we're only in the Cirrus system, which is like the very first place that you start, so all the enemies will be sort of like level 1. But I'm level 50, but just for the sake of showing you what the ships actually look like in combat, we'll just fly into one of these sort of random Klingon battle zones, which are just, they pop up all over the place, but you do get these big distress calls here, and that's a big event, so there'll be like dozens of boil cubes absolutely everywhere, and you'll need big teams of people to work together, take them down, and then this massive ship pops in at the end, and you've all got to work together again, take that one down, you get massive XP bonuses from that. So this is just a basic battle. These just sort of just dotted about everywhere, just to keep you busy while you're flying between missions. Now the majority of the missions I have actually completed, obviously, for level 50. But the newest one, which is on a Dyson sphere, which is actually set in the Delta Quadrant, that's the one I haven't done yet. So I am planning on going through that. Now it looks like most of the enemies have been taken out, but with these sort of random spawning enemy sections, they do come back after a little while. So just put full impulse on. Now see, even my computer's not running the best graphics card ever, but when you've got some of these beautiful skyscapes, and especially like when you're in nebulas and things like that, there's all the particle effects and then the weapon effects and the explosions. Oh, they just genuinely look amazing, some of them. But it doesn't look like there's going to be anyone here, so we'll just warp out of this system. Brilliant emergency stop there. That was good. So we'll just warp out of here. We'll find somewhere a little bit more There was another one next to it, I think, so we'll try that. No, so we don't want to walk to the next sector, we want to go over there. So we'll try this one, see if there's anyone knocking about in here. Because there's a new weapon that I've actually got, which is an omnidirectional anti-proton beam, which is mint. It sounds mint, for God's sake. But it basically means that you can just fire an anti-proton beam in any direction, regardless of wherever the enemies are. So it's pretty useful stuff. But mainly I've got anti-proton beams on the front, tri-cobalt torpedoes on the front, powerful photon torpedoes on the back, and then with the torpedo buffs that you can put on there as well, you can just annihilate people. So there's another guy that we've got in with us here, Wiggles, the USS Ripper. Now everyone obviously names their own ships, and some of them are good, some of them are pretty fucking stupid, but usually they're all pretty funny. So there's some enemies down here, we'll just get down here to them. Right, now this is obviously a speed indicator here. Here we've got the direction of your shield, so if you know that there's going to be a specific heavy attack coming from one direction, you can redirect power to the shields for that direction, and it sort of helps with the impact of the blow. But what we can do in this case is, because I know that this is going to be 48 levels lower than me, I can just put all of my power distribution into the weapon systems. So we can just fire off a couple of shots, and that should pretty much just take him out straight away. There we go. Now obviously there's a lot more challenge when they're your level, especially when there's multiple of them. But everyone does drop loot, and they will always be level specific to the enemies that you're killing. So in this case, a Mark 1 plasma cannon, that'll be useless for me. But you know, if you've got friends that are just starting, it's good to pick up and save this loot, keep it to one side just in case, you know, they need a hand, or you find some stuff on some enemies that's actually better than what they'd find normally. But it looks like everyone in here is like, so he's level 50, the same as me. He's a few levels below. But we'll see if we can get up here. This one up here. We'll take a couple of these guys out. So let's just drop down. Half speed usually helps with the turning circles. So if we activate the fire at will, we can basically just come in and just fuck everyone up. But then I've also had some reinforcements arrive. So again, not brilliant to sort of show things off, as there's a lot of people just sort of milling about and they just come in just to get easy kills. But those tri-cobalt torpedoes, when that's a level 3 and then that detonates, it sets off a hell of an explosion. It pushes everything away from it as well. So like I say, as soon as you actually make contact with an enemy ship with that, you can do huge amounts of damage. Now one of the new features that has been added that I haven't really explored too often are these new sort of command abilities. So this actually gives you a buff as well as all the friends in the area. So say we've just given a buff to ourselves and the dude that's just gone past there as well. So that's something new that has been added. But other than that, there's nothing else that I can actually unlock. I mean, the quantum slipstream drive, which again is something from Voyager, is brilliant. It just means that when you're travelling in deep space between different areas, you can activate the quantum slipstream drive and you can just rocket along at basically transwarp speeds. It's not perfectly transwarp because obviously, that's supposed to be just like literally disappearing from one section of space and just appearing somewhere else. It's like infinite speed. So for example's sake, we'll just turn that on. So you just fly along at transwarp 32.34. Now maximum speed that any warp capable ship is actually capable of is warp 9.96 or 8 or something. But this means that you can just go along at unbelievable speeds. But it just means that you can't turn really well. But when you're in the middle of deep space, turning isn't really an issue. It's kind of like an autopilot function. So you just click to whichever system you want to go to. That'll fly you there. So there's some more enemies here. Now, these are Klingons again. So they might not be hugely powerful, but there might just be a few less people actually milling about here. So we can engage a couple of these guys ourselves, test out a couple of good weapons, drop a few mines, activate some powers, that kind of thing. Right, well I've already seen a pretty good looking ship that's just next to me there. But he's just warped out, which could very well mean that there's no one in. Oh no, there's someone down there. But there will always be... Oh, there we go. Some guys to the... There we are. So what we'll do is we'll activate a burst of speed, and that gives you additional manoeuvrability. We'll just fly straight up to this dude. Target him. We'll fire off one of these heavy tri-cobalt torpedoes. And boom, there you go, 21,000 damage. That would have been at least 2 or 3 times his actual hull damage. But that's the good thing as well. You've got to be careful when you blow these things up, especially big things like the Borg cubes. They've got massive splash damage on the actual explosion of the vessel itself. So as soon as things like the warp core goes critical, and the self-destruct, if they set self-destruct, if you set self-destruct, it will damage anything in the area. So you've got to be sure to be clear of those blasts. But this is just a very, very rough outline of everything that Star Trek Online can do. There's also a huge amount of ground-based missions, speaking to NPCs, investigating stories, the actual investigation of the Romulan star exploding, the whole thing from the other films. That's a mission that's in this as well. So it's all really complicated, really interesting, but as you can see, it's a beautiful space exploration game. So the ground stuff isn't particularly good in comparison to other MMOs, say. But with the mixture of space and ground, and with the constant work that is being done on this, quite frankly, I'm surprised that there's as many people that play it as they do. Because obviously there's not a huge amount of Star Trek fans, but there are millions of people that play this, mainly for the fact that it is free to play. So if you do like those kind of spacey shooters, or if you're into sci-fi, it could be something worth having a look into. It's free to play. It's not a huge amount of downloads. The patches are always constant. It's always giving you new stuff. It's always giving you tips and little tricks and things. So definitely one to get if you're a fan of the space genre. I've been Dan. This has been Dan Plays. Thank you all for joining us. Hopefully we're going to do a few more of these Star Trek Onlines when Callum gets his PC. If this has been enough to convince him, I might even have him in as a level 1 support, and I'll sort of talk him through some missions and that. So thanks again all for joining us. Take care. Bye bye.